Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Pabs, a racing VTuber and an artist. And today, as you can see, I have a few needle felting supplies. This time I've taken a few precautions towards my own kind of proclivities. I've learned a lot from the different hand cam streams that I've been trying to do. So now I've literally duct taped my cutting board to my desk and duct taped this thing also. I don't know what to call this thing. So now I have like a kind of general space to focus on. So as you can see, I have over here a few different things of fluff. We got a little bit of variety. We got like this kind of grayish one. We got this kind of very lightly white one. We have this yellowish one. We have this pinkish one. We have this one which is kind of cool actually. I don't know if my camera's like good enough to tell those colors apart. It's kind of like rainbowish, right? It's kind of like faded cotton candy or something. And then of course we have this little bit of black one. And what we're going to try to do with these is we're going to try and make rice beads. Now, I recently got myself a few more supplies for needle felting. I got myself this very snazzy, how many are here? Like 8? 8 or so? Like this 8-fold prick for... Somehow it feels wrong calling these pricks, but that's kind of what I'm going to use them to do. But yeah, as you can see, this one's going to be very efficient for very quickly doing the stabby stab to the wool. Then we also got the triple play kind of stabby thing. Very, very nice. And then we've also got the right bastard of a single pick here. I went back to work a little bit. You might remember this little guy from the first needle felting stream that we did. I went back to try and do a little bit more work on this guy. I found out the single needle one has a very interesting mechanism. At least I found it interesting. So what it has is that it has like this little stopper, right? So you can see here that it's got like this little wooden stopper. And what you're supposed to do is that you have this little niche, this little crevice where you're supposed to put the needle, and then you bonk the stopper into the actual handle here, right? But what I found out is that because the stopper isn't that long, or it's got some kind of strange properties to it, there's actually way too much hollow space in here. So when you try to use the stopper, eventually when you try to poke stuff with the needle, it eventually just goes backward. That's why this needle is so long. I actually had to use the longest barb available, because even then when it gets pushed back, we only get about this much, right? These two would have no such problem. So what I might end up doing is I might end up switching out the 3-play one for a single one of these, just so I don't have to deal with the abject failure of this one. That might have been a little harsh. Abject failure is a very strong kind of sentiment to put on a set of needles. Nevertheless, that's our plan. So the reason I also have this is the pure white one, and this is a slight. I don't know. This one also looks kind of pure whitish. I don't know. I use a lot of yellow lighting in my house. I don't know what kind of freak uses white lighting all throughout their house. I feel like that would make you feel like you're living in a hospital. But if you enjoy it, more power to you. In any case, the reason I have these two kind of set apart is because I feel like if to get it to the size, because I want it kind of I don't know, what's a good desk trinket to have? Maybe about the size of this praying dog statue. Hang on, the camera's having some trouble focusing. About the size of this praying dog statue, right? Maybe a little smaller. Maybe a little smaller. So that's kind of the idea here. And while that certainly seems feasible, I'm going to leave this guy to kind of watch over the progress here. He's the foreman. While that seems feasible, I do feel due to the way that these compress, I am going to need to use some kind of fodder material for the core of it, and then just kind of paint it over with the white for the beast. That being said, I feel the best way to start with this is to just make a ball. So I'm going to use the yellow one for this one. Or kind of a beanish shape. I remember that part of it is just you have to tease it out first, and then Oh wow, it's so nice. That is like a big highlight of the experience of needle felting for me. It's just like the tactile experience of it. It's just so nice to feel like the fiber. I hesitate to call this like wool or cotton because I know for a fact that it's probably just like synthetic crap. But nevertheless, let's take a look and see. It does feel it does look like a very nice fiber. I got like I online ordered like a whole bag of these. I have so many colors of this, so I need to like do something to get rid of it all. Also, hi Jupiter. All right. Oh my god, that is so much better than having to just do it like one at a time. Oh my god, do you see that? Do you see how quickly it's like taking form? Oh, this is what it must have felt like to use a gas stove when you were first off using coal. I feel like one of those apes at the beginning of 2001: A Space Odyssey. But yeah, as you can see, it's like rapidly shrinking. I don't know. Maybe I need to scale down my ambitions for like the size of this project. Maybe I need to like make it the size of my thumb. I feel like that's definitely feasible. But I do want a very solid kind of beast, right? I want this thing to have like a nice kind of like, what do you call, like rigidness to it? Using in-game cheats and goofs to multiply your needles. Yeah. God, this is just like that one time in Kerbal Space Program. Would the equivalent of using like those big head cheats be like just making the needle bigger or getting a bigger needle? I guess at that point you'd be working with like one of those churrasco skewers, so wouldn't you? You know, weirdly enough, I started getting like nervous as a child. I remember I talked about this one time. I remember that glitches and like cheats and hacks that like modified your model or like gave you too much power always freaked me out as a kid. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm glad that they were there, right? Because, you know, I'm not a very good gamer, especially not when I was like 5 years old. But like when I had like these cheats to like make a character's head bigger or something, I don't know. It always I laughed for a little bit, but then it like made me nervous if I had it on for too long. That was probably just a me thing. I had a buddy of mine who was like a big PlayStation guy. He owned like a PSP and everything, and he used to just think it was very funny. So I think I'm definitely in the minority there. I'm definitely one of those people who gets a little bit nervous when they have too much open room, you know? Like, just giving me a big open field of me, like, now walk forever! You have nothing holding you back! I would get a little bit nervous. I was like, nothing? I'd be like that. Yeah. The flip side to, like, trying to make the rice beast too small, conversely, is that the issue would arise that then I would have to. Also, I cannot emphasize just how much comfortable it is using these dowels. Like, obviously, they could stand to be a little bit ergonomic, nevertheless, a little bit more ergonomic, nevertheless. But just having this instead of like individually having to use like the needle and like developing like a gnarled claw, very nice. Remember to give your pet paps a small closed area to hide in. It's weird because in real life I do enjoy a little bit. I don't have like agoraphobia or anything. I don't have like, although, whenever I have I have two types of experiences. I don't like it when being indoors and it feels too open, if that makes sense. Like I remember one time I went to an IKEA warehouse, and when I saw how big the roof was, I genuinely felt a little bit panicked. Like the one of two times I've been to an IKEA. I've only been to an IKEA ever twice or so. Cozy spot and open space to roam. I sound like some kind of like I sound like some kind of house cat, or perhaps a chihuahua. Like one of those small one of those small scent hound breeds. I sound like a beagle. Although that would kind of put me in a similar league to Snoopy, so maybe that wouldn't be so bad. The Yapper. Yeah, the Ecuadorian Yapper, the first of its breed. Weirdly bipedal and very into making art and other such drawings. But yeah, I remember going to IKEA. Ah, shit. You know what would have been a funny bit if I had time to set that up? If I had gotten like one of those timer extensions and been like days since like hang on day days since last poking incident, and then just had to reset it whenever I poked myself because I feel like that's going to happen at least once or twice. Thankfully, the little sheaths here do provide enough resistance that I like don't actually stab myself. Like I feel the prick, like I feel it going up against it first, but maybe I was putting too much oomph into it that time. But yeah, like the other two times, there's been three times exactly where I remember I felt acutely aware of the idea of a horizon. Right, the first one was under that IKEA rooftop where I felt like confined, and the other two times is like when I've been looking at like the sunset or like at the place where like an ocean meets the horizon of the sky, and I felt like a tremendous amount of tranquility from that. I don't know. Maybe it's like the difference between like an artificial horizon and a real horizon. Yikes! My mochi's been skewered. I got turned into Dango. Hmm. Come to think of it, I do have the colors in place for to be one of those like 3-color Dango sets. You know, the ones that kind of look like spring, like Sakura Hatsune Miku. Why am I so edible? Like, obviously, I made of rice, but somehow it feels like like I make it way too easy to make jokes about trying to eat me. Well, that's a circle of life, I suppose. Yeah, check this out. Oh, that already feels very sturdy. Hanami Dango. Is that what they're called? Nice. Yeah, this already feels like nice. Like this already has like only the slightest amount of gift to it. I think so. I think the move is to keep poking this one a little bit longer, and then just try and build the outer shell of the beast around it. I don't think we actually needed all this. At least, I mean, it would be a little bit funny if I just made the biggest rice beast possible. I do have to think about the tail after all. I remember seeing that like dango, like ordinary dango, is also cooked with like this sweetened savory sauce of like some kind of like soy sauce derivative or something. That also sounds pretty tasty. Technology is wild. Why use one shovel when you can duct tape six together? I mean, that's the concept of like power machines and excavators, right? In a lot of cases, it's kind of an interesting case where you have like the tools at like a human level, right, to begin with, right? And then when you try to scale that up, you have to like make the tools kind of like more sophisticated. But in between, there's this funny zone where you're essentially just like using steam to do the same thing as a human, or with strength that an ordinary human might not be able to conjure. All right, let me switch it out for the triple play one because I think that now we're like more interested in like how much do you say accuracy than just brute force. God, I can't help but feel like this is gonna turn out very lumpy. Like this already looks a little like I'm rotating it. I'm doing fushigi stuff with like a cheese curd. or some kind of peeled potato. I don't know. It has that very kind of pleasant, like, whoop, almost skewered myself there. Almost pleasant kind of like, I actually skewered myself there. Fuck. Phew, no blood. All right, we cool. I really shouldn't do like that rapid fire thing. I know we like our jokes, but I'd really rather not turn out skewered. I'd like to limit all my experiences with skewers to that of barbecues, if you please. Lumpy like that starter calamari thing? That's exactly what it's like. Yeah. Alright, let me try to use a single one here. Okay. Weirdly enough, it's kind of more comfortable to use a single one at some point, because for the other two, we have to... Actually, that's actually really... Oh, no, that did draw blood. That's unfortunate. Good thing I have first aid. Which is to say, a little napkin off the side of the stream that I can just use to patch that up under the glove. It's not like a lot of blood, it's just like... I'd really rather not get blood into these things if I can help it. Ay. What's Twitch's, like, policy on accidental self-inflicted injuries? Like, do you still get banned if it's just, like, completely an accident and also a little bit funny? Needle felting stream with violence. God. Come to think of it, out of all the like the daintier handicrafts, right? Like all the fiber arts, this one does feel like the most violent. I don't know if there's necessarily a more violent one, but like this is the only one that I can think of that involves a lot of like poking and stabbing. Trying to... Ow! And come on, I wasn't even holding the glove that time. You might cause the rice beast to be imbued with some sort of power if you bleed on it. God, I hope not. That little furry bastard has enough power as it is. It already whips my ass at fighting games. If it gets more powerful, it might actually take over my house or something. Granted, I don't think Rice Beast is interested in such a thing as land ownership. But nevertheless, it's not a good idea to tempt the fates. Okay. Just do this stabby. I am wondering how easy it is to make the structure for these. I feel like since I'm going in with like no, because like when you're sewing or something, right, you need to have like a pattern or something to kind of guide your material, your fabric. I mean, you don't need to have it, but it's generally a good idea if you wanted all the pieces to fit correctly. I don't know if such a thing exists for like what I'm doing here. This part here needs to be squashed down a little. Hey, not the Octuple play. Beast exposed to strategy games, now evil and power hungry. Yeah, I don't know. Between the three of us, right? Like me, Tool, and Rice Beast. Tool seems to be the one who really enjoys strategy games and card games. I did see her eyeing a deck of Magic the Gathering cards the other day. Rice Beast doesn't seem to be interested in that sort of thing, though, but Tool still keeps challenging Rice Beast to more fighting game matches, even though she's easily the worst one out of all three of us. I don't know, I think there's something about her warrior's pride or something that'll not let her like take the L gracefully. Tool, still evil, plays Magic the Gathering. I think that's very much her case. You know, I do feel like Tool just enjoys the feeling of having like completely outplayed someone. I think that's why she enjoys games like that, where it's all about the mind games, right? I don't know. I used to think that I liked most games in a genre, right? Like I used to think that I was a huge RPG guy, but recently I've come to realize that I kind of just like the games that I end up liking. There's I don't know. I think it's more about like the vibe and sense of humor of the games that draws me towards them rather than the actual genre. Although weirdly enough, I'm not a huge fan of like quote unquote comedy games, right? Like I've heard of games that are supposed to be like comedy games. I feel like slapping that genre onto yourself is such a bad idea because like then I feel like I don't know, when you label your game as a comedy game, I don't know what people are expecting, but I feel like I'm expecting a lot of like old LucasArts style point and click adventures, right? Where like everybody's like kind of like a sarcastic jerk a little bit. That's kind of what I'm picturing. I don't know. Maybe that's not the case anymore. I think like Portal is supposed to be a comedy game. Portal 2 at least is also supposed to be a comedy game, but I don't feel that way about it. Although maybe that's just because like I just like Portal 2 a lot to begin with. Who knows? Although I will say that like if it's like a roguelike deck builder, that usually turns me off a little bit. Not because I particularly look down on that genre, but because I just don't enjoy playing such games. I did end up enjoying Nitro Kid much more than I thought I would, but that doesn't mean I'm ready to like profess my love for the genre. Come to think of it, I still haven't played the full version of Nitro Kid. Not that I own it, but like I don't know, maybe it's something to look into at some point. Although I have been recently thinking of starting up a Fallout 3 playthrough on my private time. I don't know. I feel like enough time has passed because the first time I played through Fallout 3 was like fresh off the heels of like having played Fallout New Vegas. And while I have come to understand that 3 has its own kind of strengths and weaknesses, I still like New Vegas so much more that it's kind of unreal. Like going back to Fallout 3, like for example, in New Vegas, right? If you have a certain degree of number of skill points in a skill, you can just choose to pass that skill check. But in Fallout 3, even if you do the check and you still have like the points requisite to give you like the points just improve your chances of passing that check. They make your chances better than zero. So some checks are still like very much impossible. Or rather, it just takes much more annoying save scumming rather than what I preferred about New Vegas' style, which is that you could just like understand the kind of prerequisites you would need and then try to game it some other way. I don't know. I'm someone who enjoys preparations more than they do like chance outcomes. So maybe that's why I have that sort of opinion about it. Hmm. Not a bad egg if I do say so myself. Got a good general shape to it. Although I don't like that this part here. I don't know if that's showing up too well. It does feel like it's a little like split in half, so it feels a little bit like a butt crack. Let's see if we can't patch that up a little bit. Like maybe we loosen up some of the fibers over it. I just very recently trimmed my nail, so maybe that'll help. The stopper seems to be holding on pretty well this time around. I don't think it'll give as much trouble in the future. Although that might just be wishful thinking. I might need to get up and go get my pliers if I need to reset the mechanism. Back in middle school, I owned for some reason, I've always liked owning tools, right? Even though I haven't been like a huge home projects guy, I still find it useful to have a good range of tools. And that's true of anybody, right? Like, even if you don't regularly do like home repairs or anything like that, it's useful to just have tools on hand in case you do need to do something. Like, for example, once upon a time, I was able to fix my toilet because I had the right tools for it because I bought them to install a bidet. Right? So, it's those kinds of situations that pop up where they're very useful. So I do encourage everybody to own if not decent, then at least a set of tools, right? Anyway, I used to have this kind of resin head hammer. I don't know how else to call it. Like, it was made of like this rubbery, resiny material. And what's cool about it is like if you hit something with it, because the hammer head wasn't hard, it wouldn't leave a dent. Of course, that also meant that it was useless for pounding in stuff like nails, because the nail wouldn't dent the hammer. But given that I was barely ever using nails to begin with, it was rather useful for me. Alright, I think we've got a good kind of support bean on our hands here. So I think the next step is to coat it with one of these whiter kind of ones, because rice beans is very much a white furred animal. All right. I don't know. I feel like the one on the left here is whiter, but that might just be a trick of the eyes. All right. I'll tease out these fibers a little bit. And so that way. Okay. Oh. Interesting. I wonder if there's a way to make it so that the fur it maintains this furry shape. That might be beyond my skill level at this point, though. Still, it'd be nice if this could always be this kind of soft and smooth, right? With the bright yellow inside and the whiter outside, it reminds me a little bit of an egg yolk. Hang on. Can we start a counter? Okay, so that's been, I think, the third time. Hang on. There we go. All right. I'm gonna have to ask the people in chat to update that whenever I accidentally stab myself. I think you'll be able to know it when you hear it. So if you could do that for me, and we can keep track of that statistic. Well, I don't think it'll reflect well on me, but it'll be a fun game to play. Next needle felting stream, I'm gonna need to print out tiny little mini signs scattered around here and there, just like with the work safety. You know that sign of a hand getting caught in a bunch of gears, right? It'll have to be like that. You'll become stab proof by the end. I don't know. I asked Patron one time, and he said that I don't think you can build up an immunity to stabbing. I don't know. Maybe nobody's just hasn't had the guts yet, right, to try it out. So who knows? It might be possible after all. Human beings are the kind of organism that can overcome that are meant to overcome their limits. Then again, I'm not exactly human, so maybe that doesn't apply to me. How troubling. Well, even if I'm not meant to overcome my limits, I'll probably overcome them one way or another. If I have to, right? Sometimes there's just no other choice. Okay, then over here. Okay. I, maybe what I will be able to do is that I will be able to learn how to parry the needle or something. Like my reaction time might increase on my finger might dodge out of the way at the last second. My hand will be able to do like Devil May Cry table hopper nonsense by the time I'm wrapped up with the rice beast. Let me take a feel of this. Oh, that's kind of fluffy. I do enjoy. I do like. It's just because this needle kind of crooked. No, that it has to be straight, right? In any case, this is the one that I want to least get stabbed by. And look at how long it is. It's like when a doctor pulls out one of those huge injection needles. You're gonna feel it one way or another, but it's still menacing. I've never been particularly afraid of shots at the doctor's office. Although, I don't like getting shots at the dentist's office, not because I'm particularly afraid of it, but just because of the inconvenience that it brings. A long time ago, I had a surgery done on my teeth, and the injection site was sore for like a few days afterwards too, where they had to like inject the anesthetic. I'm trying to remember what it felt like for my gum graft, but I don't remember them. Either I healed too quickly for me to notice, or they used much better anesthetic. It's hard to say. It could easily be a combination of both. Maybe the anesthetic technology has come a little further than it used to be. It was about 7 years of a gap, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's been improvements since then. No. For some reason, I always felt like anesthetics was like one of those fields where we'd more or less figured stuff out, Either it knocks you out or it doesn't. Seems pretty straightforward to me. I think the main thing was like the dosage of it, right? I remember that in like the story of remember that Andre the Giant. There's a bunch of stories about his size affecting how certain things that affect ordinary people affected him, right? So, for example, he'd have to drink 2 entire 6 packs of beer just to feel a little bit tipsy or something, right? Something to that degree. I remember there was also a story where he had to use the cover of a grand piano as a blanket one time when he got drunk. What a guy. I think that's looking pretty clean. Whoop. It's trying to escape. Yeah, that's not too bad. It has like a nice kind of like fuzzy look to it. It's like an egg. Can I offer you an egg in this trying time? But yeah. I mean, being a wrestler, you'd think that he'd know a thing or two about going under, but I think the way he helped more was because they had like an extreme, right? Sometimes when you have an extreme, it's easier to figure out what lies between those extremes. So for an extremely small person, we have a reference for how that would work, but then we don't have really a reference for how an extremely huge person would work. And so once we established that basis through Andre the Giant, we had a little bit of a better reference for how it scaled down for everyone. Just a little bit more accurate, but sometimes that's all you need. I was taking a look through some notes that I made the other day, right? I have this notebook that I've been using for just my random personal notes. It's very similar to the one that I use for my work stuff, but I've made sure to put like stickers on it and everything just so I don't mix them up accidentally. And I came across some notes that I took during a lecture during a convention from this one dude who was huge into personal like body mounted technology, right? Like he was one of those dudes who had like a 1 terabyte flash drive embedded in his leg because he kind of wanted it. You wouldn't do something like that unless you wanted it, right? It's kind of sketchy enough as it is. For example, he noted that he wasn't allowed to use, or rather he couldn't use anesthetics, funnily enough, during the surgery for any of the modifications he'd made, because conventional doctors wouldn't just give you anesthetics for mounting a Bluetooth headset to your brain, right? So most of the stuff done with those is done without anesthetic. But something that he talked about was gene hacking, right? So one of the ideas that he had is that he talked to this bunch of dudes who did this thing called like a myostatin knockout. And if you've never heard of myostatin before, it's a sort of hormone. I believe it's a hormone, at least. I'm pretty sure 50-50 odds it's a hormone, 50-50 odds it's something else. But to digress, it's a sort of hormone that inhibits your muscle growth. It's kind of your body's natural limiter for how much muscle you can grow. Because believe it or not, although being stronger is quite useful, once your body gets to a certain, size, it becomes inefficient. It's kind of the same reason how, even though lobsters will never die, they can grow infinitely big. So they eventually get harmed from growing so big, if that makes sense. This is our body's way of trying to avoid that. So what myostatin does is that it puts a limit on how much you can grow in terms of muscle, in terms of just sheer body size, in terms of how much blood you produce and such. And so knocking out myostatin can have the effect of helping you gain muscle very, very easily. If you suppress your myostatin one way or another, you are going to start packing on weight. You're going to start like getting big, and obviously your metabolism will increase to compensate. And so I was like, is that actually a thing that you can like just get? Like, I feel like we would hear more about it if it was that easy, right? And lo and behold, it turns out it is not in fact that easy. Not only did I not find the kind of resources he seemed to be talking about, I fell down this rabbit hole of like this YouTuber who was this dude who's just taken different types of steroids and who talks about like the steroids that he's taken on his YouTube channel. And he talked about a steroid that did block out your myostatin, similar to how this guy was. I have way too much material here. I'm going to need to like tear it apart a little bit. You're tearing me apart. Anyway, he was talking about like the different products that he'd used to knock out his own myostatin, and it turns out that predictably for perhaps like literally everybody else, other than starry-eyed wannabe bodybuilders, it is quite dangerous to knock out your myostatin. Not just because you're messing around with your hormones and your genes and whatnot, in a way that hasn't been like extensively studied, because nobody's been studying these knockout treatments. It's just been a bunch of dudes who are just trying to like gene hack, right? Anyway, not only is it dangerous because of that, but also because not limiting your growth doesn't just mean for your muscles. It's like across the board. So your organs can get bigger. You can gain too much blood. This guy also described the feeling as like aggressive. Like there was like this one time when he tried to take it before going to bed, so he would grow more overnight, and he just could not sleep because of how hyper the steroid made him. I don't know. I feel like that's a very effective kind of stay away from this. And he, every single time, like every 5 minutes throughout the video, he would also say, "This is like the sketchiest fucking product I have ever reviewed. Do not use this. I cannot stress this enough. Do not use this." And meanwhile, like the comment section was full of dudes who were like, "Yo, where can I get?" Like, my brother, have you not been listening to the video? Don't do drugs, kids. I know that's a weird thing to say on 420, but don't do drugs. But yeah, fascinating rabbit hole. I don't know. I feel like it's a good thing that guy is like talking about it, right? Like talking about the side effects and whatnot. This is too. I meant for this to be the ears, but this is a little bit too big for that. So I'm gonna make this a tail, I think. You know, we do a little bit of pivoting. Me when I'm trying to create an advanced table on Excel. Something that I am proud of myself at my workplace is for being much better at making pivot tables now. I don't know, they always seemed rather mystical whenever I tried to use them before. But now they just seem pretty practical. Maybe I can just kind of... Hang on. Let me try to flatten this out and then maybe I can roll it up and then... Whoop, be careful. And then maybe I can roll it up to make a more tail-like shape. I don't know if that stabbing sound is coming through. I'm like fucking going Metal Gear Rising on this. Oh, that feels very sturdy now, actually. I wonder if trying to pack the needles too closely together leads to a sort of bed of nails sort of situation where you just don't feel the effects of the nails properly because they're so close together. I wonder if it's a similar situation to that. Because I don't know, these are very well spaced apart. I don't know how clearly that comes through from the camera. But I don't know. I think if you use thin enough needles, but then they would snap very easily too. Might not be worth it. At this rate, the cat-like qualities of rice beasts are going to morph to that of a fox. I've heard of foxes being mistaken for cats, but I've never heard of a cat being mistaken for a fox. It'd be kind of problematic if that was the case. Imagine if somebody posted a missing pet ad in a neighborhood, and some dude just rocked up to their residence with a fennec, being like, "Hey, yo, I found your cat." First of all, no, you didn't. Second of all, put that thing down. Where did you find that? We live in like an Arctic climate. How did you find a fennec? Those things are like desert based. At least I'm pretty sure they are. I wish it were possible to use scissors with this sort of thing, but I feel like that's such a bad idea. Just because of the fact that it's going to rip apart, cleanly cut the fibers rather than rip them apart, which is kind of what we want in a lot of this. Alright, 4. Okay. Also, I can't help but feel like I'm going to need to get a new one of these. I've already worn some deep dents and grooves into this. I saw somebody using a sponge as one of these things earlier, so I might be able to leverage that sort of idea. Recently, I've switched over to silicone sponges exclusively, so I don't really have a use for ordinary sponges. Conversely, that means that I also don't have them in stock. I do have one left, but I'd rather not use that one for needle felting on account of the fact that I usually use it to, like, clean raw meat containers. I sanitize it after each one, but I don't think I want my rice beads to be smelling of meat. This, along with the idea to put a little blood on that beast, I don't know, it feels like we're making some kind of homunculus. Better avoid that. I can't see that ending with anything but heartbreak. I'm not about to become Dr. Frankenrice out here. Although I might cut a fine figure into lab coat. I don't know, some crazy goggles and whatnot. Might not be a half bad look for me. I wonder if it's possible to maybe... Nope. This is way too thin. I could make the egg body larger. That might be an option. Whoop. Okay, I gotta be very careful with... well, just about everything. This is kind of why I wanted to make the rice piece a little bit bigger than I needed to. Just in case this exact situation played out. Well, frankly, it's been going a lot smoother than I had thought. Barely stabbed myself, even. That counter has not moved since the beginning of the stream. Since the middle of the stream. Through like a quarter of the way through the stream. I don't know, the night is pretty young. Okay, there we go. It's got a weird kind of like thickness to it at the end, huh? It reminds me a little bit of that raccoon suit or tanuki suit that Mario can wear. Which means we've still got a little bit of a ways to go before we can call it done. Okay. It's like this slight crack in it that I want to mend. Yeah, that's definitely way too big. I either need to thin it down. Actually, that might not be a bad idea. Can I? It's a little bit too dense already to tear it out easily. I might have to brute force this thing. It's really difficult to do this with the little pads. It's hard to tease it out. I've done a really good job. Haven't I done too good of a job, actually? Oh, goodness. My beast is going to be so sturdy by the time we're done. Hang on. This is not working. Making a neat little pile of fluff over here. I don't know, maybe these can be the ears. Actually, come to think of it, if I just roll these up, shouldn't that also kind of achieve a similar effect to stabbing them? It intertwines the fibers either way. Although, that might just be wishful thinking on my part. But that might be a good way to shape the ears initially, at least. Just literally sculpting them. I should consider it further. Still, this part is kind of stubborn, isn't it? This is exactly the kind of scenario I was hoping we could avoid. Well, now that we're here, it's not actually that bad. How does that saying go? Better than I'd feared, worse than I'd hoped. Something like that. Hell, I'm actually surprised we've gotten this far. I know we barely have a tail, and we've only made like the bean of the body. But frankly, I was expecting myself to like practically be churrasco by this point. Or for some other catastrophic thing to happen. Whenever you see people ambitiously trying to make animals out of nothing with the needle felting kits and such, it usually goes poorly. I was hoping I'd be able to make a bit like that in the end of the thumbnail, but surprisingly, it's going quite well. I guess I should be happy that we haven't run into major difficulties. I was about to say major contradictions, but that's not the right word at all. Contra. Hey, Babs, hope you're doing well and staying hydrated. That's a good idea. Let me take a quick sip. Thank you. How you doing, Common? Right now we're trying to make a tail for the body of the beast, but as you can see, there's a little bit of mismatch in terms of sheer size. So now we're paring the tail down to thighs. Okay. Of course, no amount of the fiber will go to waste. I'll just use it for something else. I'm good procrastinating on chores? Jeez. Well, I can't say I don't relate to that. I don't know. Sometimes just doing the dishes just feels like such a monumental task. Hey, like this big? Might need to bend this around a little bit. Yeah, that might work. But furthermore, I also need to thin it out. I need to reduce its density and mass. God, yeah. The other day, I saw this one VTuber, Doki, talking about how she'd gotten like streamer brain, or actually, I feel like that's the phrase V attributed to her condition. That she now didn't feel like playing any normal games unless there was somebody like watching her stream it. Like she would just stream it privately on Discord for her friends, and I feel like I really understand that condition. Recently, whenever my parents call me on Sundays, I try to be doing my chores around the time they call. Not because I want to avoid the call, but because, I don't know, there's something about talking with them while I do the chore that's really soothing to me. Like when I start to do the chore while I'm talking to them, I finish the chore usually. The same can't be said if I'm just doing it by myself. Reverse Truman syndrome? God, that is a little bit what it's like, isn't it? What a terrible fate. But I am quite happy as I am, so I suppose it can't be that bad. Just like skewering the thread through the whole tail. It is nice to do things with people, even when it's in voice chat. I think that's the crux of it, isn't it? It does feel nice to feel accompanied when you do something. I don't know, something about keeping your mind busy helps you keep your hands busy. Maybe now while I'm working, I shouldn't be listening to that. Actually, yeah, come to think of it, I should try to do more work while listening to podcasts. Or maybe mystery novels if I'm trying to work my mind. I don't really have a whole lot of mystery novels on tap, though. Maybe I can find some. There has to be some kind of kind soul out there who's tried to dub some of the original Sherlock Holmes stories. And get people's voices in your heads to trick your hands. Weirdly enough, that is something that I've been trying to do a little bit. Not getting voices in my head specifically to trick my hands, but I've been thinking about how I like to do silly voices, right? Usually for me it's easy to do the voice. It's easier for me to do the voice if I do some kind of hand gesture, right? So like for example, whenever I'm speaking as like a very haughty or say like I started doing this with Edgeworth, for example, right? Like when I was doing the Ace Attorney playthrough that I had dropped. Whenever I talked to Edgeworth, when I had like this very like posh and composed voice, I would do this thing where I would like put my hand up to my chest like this. I'd like do like ninja hand signs to start activating my silly voice. And it worked pretty well. Like, for example, I also had this one military voice that I can do better if I have my hand to my forehead. Like this. Sort of like that. In any case, I've been trying to figure out how I can get more in there. Having a very specific cadence and just way of speaking in mind is helpful. But I feel like it helps to activate it in some way. Ace Attorney playthrough, which I had dropped, just like me, for real. I feel like that's, people talk about like dropping RPG playthroughs and talking about other playthroughs. I feel like I have dropped more visual novels than any other game. Although no, okay, I've only dropped 2 games to my memory. I've dropped Killer 7, which I did end up finishing after much blood, sweat, and tears. And I also finished, but I haven't finished Ace Attorney, and I'm hoping to correct that soon. I don't know what it's gonna take, but I'll finish it one way or another. I'm not gonna be the one guy who's played Killer 7 but hasn't played Ace Attorney. That feels all kinds of fucked up. Like somebody might be like, based. Oh, if you're looking for Sherlock audiobooks, would recommend. They have uploads of people reading public domain works. Yeah. Maybe try just typing out the name of the website without the .com. Reading out loud. Its voice acting is really hard. Yeah. I can see why V invited me to do that thing with Signalis. Especially if it's like a whole game playthrough in one sitting, it's not very easy to knock out. I definitely wouldn't be able to do it in one sitting. I don't know, what's the world record timing for Ace Attorney? Is there such a thing as Ace Attorney speedruns? I feel like that's the kind of game that would be very difficult to sequence break. Or to gain any time on. It would just be mashing A for like 9 hours while you do the correct detective work. Moral of the story, reverse streamer brain it. Make people read the game for you. Yeah, just find another sucker that'll help you out there. That's exactly what you ought to do, and that's what V did do, and that's why she's the GOAT. I, however, have no such luxury. I need to thug that shit out. I'm succeeding in making the tail sturdier. Doesn't necessarily feel any more. Come to think of it, doesn't it have a weird shape now? It's very square. Let's fix that real quick. Gotta be careful to not do too much on any one side, or else it'll look weirdly flattened from one perspective. Ah, looks like it also got some stains on there from some of the needles. That's a bummer. Beast in Minecraft. Minecraft Rice Beast. Rice Beast would actually make such a good Minecraft mob, it's not even funny. Put my thing in Minecraft. Go for it. Mojang, if you're listening, or I guess Microsoft now. Mojang, Microsoft, if you're listening right now, put my beast in Minecraft, alright? Do it. I think you should really do it. Make it like a rare cat spawn if you have to. I don't know. Yeah, if you keep breeding cats, there's like a 1 in 5 billion chance that it's going to be a rice beast. Although I guess if they want to make rice beasts, they'd have to introduce rice itself first. What a bunch of cheapskates. They've got a bunch of other vegetables in there. Why can't they have rice as a basic grain? Hmm? You telling me that this far, and the only seeds that you get from grass are just for making wheat? Get out of here. Get out of here with that shit. That's a weak sauce argument, and we both know it, Microsoft. Rice beasts are a hostile mob and will tear you to shreds. Yes, that's right. They're like wolves. You have to feed them like 2 or 3 bones before they accept you as not necessarily their master, but they are like passive to you now. It is said, after all, that the same rice beast will never bite a person twice. I don't think that's a true saying, though. My beast has bitten me way more times than I can count. I don't know, maybe the little bastard just likes the flavor of mochi. That would explain a lot, after all. Alright, I think this is about as good as it's gonna get. Alright, time to play pin the tail on the rice beast. I really shouldn't be doing this, like, just out in the air. It's kind of hard to pin it down. I don't know, maybe I can make a second segment to the tail and then pin that on the remainder of the tail. That might be possible, after all. It reminds me a little bit of those. Actually, it doesn't look too bad, doesn't it? Does it? Although it does remind me a little bit of those cats who've had their tails cut to a nub. I think that's to do with like their spay procedure or something. I don't know. I remember being related to something like that. Hang on, let me pivot to its back a little bit too. There we go. That's not too bad. You know, that's pretty good looking. Decent, even. Although the method of attachment does look a little painful. I wonder. Maybe that's why lots of people don't actually, you know, besides the obvious, shall we say, technical difficulties, maybe that's why people don't make too many needle feltings of the characters they like. Feels a little bit too much like you're trying to curse them. Not bad. We do urgently have to add the ears, though. I feel like the ears are like very much like if we have the hierarchy of needs, right? The ears are kind of like up here. I keep forgetting that this is mirrored. Okay, hang on. Yep. Nope. Yep. Yep. Okay, perfect pyramid. It's over here. Hmm. I do wonder if it's possible to just like keep rolling it. Rolling, rolling, rolling. Whoop. Careful. Watch your hands. Watch your hands. Kind of wish I had one for like this finger too, you know? That way I could like very easily just like pin it between these two, but it looks like my constant enemy will allow me no such. Well, I'd call it a pleasure. No such convenience. Hmm. They'd have to be very small ears. Maybe the best thing I can do is to just. I try to increase its size again, but now that I've pinned the tail, it's going to be even harder. And I just need to keep pounding it into nothing like this. If nothing else, that's the most amusing outcome. Whoops, careful. Ah! Okay, can somebody put the counter up to 4? Ouchie. Or I don't know. The next, I think we haven't increased it since the beginning to since 3. So, yep. Thank you, Jupiter. Hmm. There has to be a more elegant way to accomplish what I want to do. I don't know. Maybe we can give it just like huge fucking ears. Right now, I'm like stabbing at the place where I've bent it. The Bat Beast. Banana, rice beast. Actually, don't the symbols work a little too well in that in that parody? For a long time, and possibly even just now, I've ended up having a hard time differentiating the Batman theme from the Dr. Mario theme because they can both be sounded out very similarly, like na 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 like that. I really used to like the Dr. Mario theme. I was a big fan of it. I remember when I listened to it in like Melee, right when I was playing with my brother when we were kids. I was super excited whenever it came on. Huh. Not bad, but I feel like we can do better. Let's keep working on it. After all, I feel like this is the kind of handicraft where patience is ultimately rewarded. It's hard to say that there's handicrafts where patience isn't rewarded, but I feel like for this one it's especially true. Now, if only I didn't need to have so many close calls with my fingers. I still haven't stabbed myself. Like I said, you'd pretty much immediately know if I'd stabbed myself. But we're having a lot of close calls over here. I've always had a strange tendency to ignore pain if it's for art. That sounds kind of ominous, but I'm talking mainly about like my main memory for this is back in high school when I was working on some art projects. I used to make these super cool statues, right? You know, have you ever seen those videos of like Chinese twisted wire sculptures? It was a little bit like that. I used to make like wire. I used to grab like a clay wire or something like that, and I used to bend it and twist it and glue it together to make a shape that I wanted. And the issue with that is that, well, you have hot glue, which by its name indicates that it's a hot substance, and you also have wire, which is made of metal, a very heat conductive substance. And so what ended up happening is that a lot of the time I would just like burn my hands trying to handle the wire. Like, ow, like I would like actually like pinch the hot glue to make sure that it sealed the wire properly and put it all together properly. On the bright side, the statue did end up looking pretty kick-ass. So, who's laughing in the end? I did enjoy the feeling of working with wire a lot. If I can find a way to do it without burning my hands, I think that would be pretty dope. Yeah. I mean, I never ended up like properly burning myself. It was just like an ouchy kind of hot, you know? Like the kind of hot where you're like, oh man, I better get my hand away from this rather than. And then, but then, I didn't. All right, I think this ear is ready. I don't know if I want to. Maybe I can just do it a little bit more. Maybe I can just try to stab it a little bit more and get it a little bit more shrunk. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I wasn't in any danger. It's not like my art teacher was letting me endanger myself, although I feel like of all my teachers, my art teacher would have definitely been the one who would let me endanger myself the most. The thing that they don't tell you about like advanced placement, like high school art, is that they pretty much let you do whatever the fuck you want, so long as you're like not actively burning down the school. So that gave me a little bit more leeway than perhaps I should have had. I remember one of my art pieces ended up incorporating this mannequin top half that I fished out of a garbage can. Boy, they were surprised to find me dragging that to school, let me tell you. I kind of just found it on the way too, so I literally didn't have it when I left my house, and then when I showed up to school, I just left it in the art room, and nobody knew what to do with this like stinky top half, but they knew it was important because it was with my stuff. Oh lordy, I don't know. I feel like having that kind of like ability to be inexplicable for a while did very good for my mental health. I don't know. There's just something nice about being able to do some weird shit and nobody questioning you about it. I think that's also part of like why I like streaming is that it enables me to be my weirdest self. Like that stream yesterday where I was just like reading bits of the Tao Te Ching between match rounds and Guilty Gear. Right? Like that's a completely weird thing to do, but but everybody was patting me on the back, like nice work sticking to the bit. It's gotta be like like it. It felt very validating to know that people, if they didn't at least find it funny, they still found like some degree of respect on it. They found some degree of respect had to be rendered to it. Gotta be mysterious from time to time, or rather, gotta be genuine. I mean, it's a little bit of both, right? I feel like there are people who are just genuinely mysterious. But rather than being genuine, it's a complicated question, right? I'd like to think that most of the artworks that I made were from the idea to be genuine. But to some extent, I feel like they were also me just asking myself, what can I make that is the most fascinating? What is the most fascinating way I can make this? So in that way, it was both genuine and also, I guess the most genuine thing about it was my desire to make something fascinating. Your dedication is always impressive. Thank you, I appreciate it. People do seem to say that my strong points are my ability to like keep yapping and the fact that I'm funny. I want to be funnier though. I want to make people bust a gut every single minute they're on here. Sure, that's unfeasible and might not even be sustainable, but it's something that I'd like to be able to do. But I think the stepping stone to that is just cultivating a good vibe. And I think we have that here. I feel like whenever people are on my stream, nobody needs to be tense. Nobody needs to be like wary. Except yesterday. Again, yesterday was very much an exception. I just thought up the bit of like this dude who just read the Tao Te Ching and then just like screamed like a maniac during his matches. And I thought that was funny. But most of the time it's not like that. Pav's giving self-critique at his Twitch performance review. Could be funnier. Pav's like amnesiac Pav's watching like recordings of himself. Huh. I mean, this guy's kind of funny, I guess. People find this funny? Like, people said this is funny? I'm not trying to be down on myself. I promise I'm not trying to be down on myself. I just think that it's really funny if like rather than finding my past streams funny, I find them amusing because of the fact that every single time that I make a joke on stream, I almost immediately, that's why I'm kind of hoping that at some point I do like a review of like an older stream of mine, just so I can like immediately make the exact same joke at the situation at hand. Like I would I would be talking my usual shit, and I'd be like, and I would like pause the video and I'd be like, oh, I should make this joke here, and then I unpause the video and he makes the same joke immediately after. I'm like, son of a bitch, you stole my punchline. It'd be like a dog getting angry at its own reflection. That's what the Pab's self-critique experience is going to be. Because the thing is, I always have like this very clear memory. If sometimes I feel like I talk about like very different things, right? Like I feel like I pull subjects out of nowhere. But in many cases, I can see the vision. I can understand what led me to that upon review. I just don't think it makes much sense from an outsider's perspective. It's always good to know yourself. But now with your comedy experience, you could probably make funnier jokes. I think I'm still a few years out from being able to do that. It would be wrong to say that I don't try to be funny. But at the same time, because I just try to say things that I think will make other people laugh. Because of that, I have no idea how to up my game, so to speak. Unless I do some kind of ridiculous bit where I pause the video and be like, "Yo, have you guys seen that meme of like a dude saying I was visiting my friend and like the other guy says something stupid to reiterate what the first guy is saying, and the second guy looks at the guy like he's just told him an awful joke." I feel like it would be a lot like that. Habs goes to improv school arc. I mean, I could go to improv school, but then I would have to meet people who actually want to do improv, and I feel like I would not be able to escape that place without at least a couple of battery charges. The friend pilled visit Maxer. Yeah, that's the one. But yeah, I feel like unless I do something like that, unless I like seriously get my chops up, I don't know what's going to happen, because a lot of it is, I don't know. Maybe that's something I should research. Figuring out how to be funnier. I guess part of that would be figuring out what makes me funny in the first place, and I think part of that is just my reaction time. Does that mean that I would have to take like a limitless pill or something to be even funnier? Like I would have, like, in order to come up with better punchlines than what I currently do, I would just have to improve my own reaction time. An improv class or two probably wouldn't hurt. Yeah. I do wonder where they host those in this town. I mean, they have to, because I know that there's an improv comedy troupe. I don't know. I have a low opinion of improv, because whenever I go to a convention that's held nearby, they always have like at least 2 or 3 shows that are just like full improv. And while improv by itself is inoffensive most of the time, like 4 to 8 hours of it in one weekend is a lot. It can be a lot. You could also sharpen your wit, perhaps. That's true. I do wonder how you sharpen your wit. I guess you would need some kind of verbal sparring partner or something like that. They do say that steel sharpens steel, after all, so maybe a sharp wit can sharpen a sharp wit. I'm gonna say that's probably one of them is definitely like a professional improv, and that was definitely the better of the two. But they could still have some kind of stinker of punchlines, you know. Not everything is gonna hit. Not everything is gonna hit. A lot of it did hit, but not everything is gonna hit. They're almost the same size. They're very nearly the same size. Although this one needs to be a little flatter. Let's flatten this one out a little bit. Well, I won't get any further if I turn my nose up at it, so it's best to approach it with an open mind, after all. Past a certain point, reservations begin to sound like excuses. Depending on how much it costs, it might not even run me that steep. I could definitely think of it as an investment. After all, a good wit isn't something that you just leave it at your door whenever you leave the house out, you know? Kind of want to flatten this one out a little bit too. There's a texture on the back of it that's like distracting me. I feel like I'm playing. You know that game where like you stab a knife between your fingers, like this. I used to have a friend of mine who was obsessed with playing that game, but with like mechanical pencils instead of actual knives. Which is definitely more responsible, but no less concerning. Yeah, Five Finger Fillet, I think it's called. The game. Hmm. Trying to position this thing. Oh, wait, hang on. Let me go get something real quick. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. This is what I want to pick up. Along with the other styles of needles that came with the package, they also provided these very handy dandy little pins. And I think this is exactly the kind of situation where these should come up. I can see BRB and I can only assume something happened with the needles. Nuh-uh. I've only stabbed myself 4 times. We've been keeping count. But yeah, these should be able to help when keeping the ears in place. But, maybe your concern isn't so unjustified. 4 is kind of a lot after all. It's higher than 0 at any rate. These are so unwieldy. I need to take these off for a second. Hmm. That's like too sideways, isn't it? Hang on. It'll definitely fit in like this. 4 and an hour and a half is about 1 every 22 and a half minutes. When you put it like that, it sounds kind of high. That's about the same. That's roughly the same kind of pace at which Mista got shot during Part 5. As long as I don't clear his kind of record, so to speak, I should be fine. These are definitely too big for a cat. I need to put these maybe further back and that way. Yeah, that might work. Hmm. Okay, let me put the protection gloves back on. I call these gloves. These are not really gloves. These are like the opposite of gloves. These are like these are like thigh highs for my most vulnerable fingers. What would the equivalent of a thigh high? What's like the inverse of a fingerless glove? A gloveless finger? That doesn't seem right somehow. I don't know. I just get the feeling that the finger stocking. That's a pretty good one, actually. That's probably what they're called. Okay, there we go. Uh-oh. I might have put these too far back. Now he's balding. Okay. Let's be real, there was no chance that this was going to look like nice, but I'm trying to make it look as nice as I can. The middle-aged rice piece is balding. God. The middle-aged rice piece seems to shed his fur at night. Especially on the inside of the ear. I feel like I can bring this back if I make like a lot of dents in the inside of the ear, so that way it looks a little bit fluffier. He can clutch this, chat. He can clutch this. That or it's gonna look like he has a dent in his skull. Which might be funny. I don't know. If I felt like a small anvil shape, I might be able to pull that off. Is that like nice and secure on there? Relatively. Wouldn't hurt to secure it a little more. Okay, there we go. I am in so much concentration. I am like fully locked into this ear. Call me a gauge the way I'm locked in this ear. I'm like one of those employees at Whole Foods that has those like really big like those like circle things. I think those are called gauges actually. Okay, that's one down, and it actually doesn't look half bad now that I've grafted it. So hopefully the other ear will look as nice, if not nicer. I might actually be able to push the other ear a little bit forward like this. I don't know. I feel like that might help. They indeed are. Thank you. All right, that's good to know. Thank you. Okay, just gotta keep stabbing very strategically. I mean, to some extent, you have to be able to like scheme ahead and be able to say and like purposely misshape your felting project so that when you graft something on it, it looks more natural than before, right? That has to be some kind of technique. Okay, be careful with the tail. Play nice with the tail. It's a little bit taller than the other one, but that's fine. We can keep poking it a little bit. And then over here. These are actually looking kind of nice. Hang on, I still need to clutch though. We're so far from being done. I still need to clutch these ears. Chat, he might be the GOAT. Hang on. Look at that. That does not look half bad, if I do say so myself. It's still got, hang on, it's got some fucked up misshaping shit going on over here, but I can fix that. I can fix that. I can fix you! I can fix you! It's certainly no modern Prometheus, but I think we've done a pretty good job so far. This is serviceable felt piece. Yeah, that's exact. I feel like that's a great adjective. Serviceable. You know, perfect? Maybe not, but serviceable? Certainly. It's not the prettiest rice piece, but it will get the job done. Okay. Time for the part that's going to fuck me up the most. And by me, I mean possibly the felt beast. The eyes. Oh god, this is gonna be harrowing. Because like with the ears, at least I could like shape those beforehand. It's gonna be difficult with the eyes because I'm gonna need to like do like precision poking. I am disappointed that we didn't end up using more of the wool, but maybe that's for the best. Alright. Here we go. Oh, actually, come to think of it, this is more like a rich brown than a proper black, huh? Well, I'm not opening up the big bag of wool that I had earlier. Hell no, that thing was like a reverse meta space, you know? It was like, it was smaller on the inside than it was on the outside. Okay, that seems like too much. That seems like way too much, actually. Unless... No, that's definitely like too much. Maybe like half of this for each eye. Looking into your felt beast's warm brown eyes. Claustrophobic. A little bit, yeah. Alright. This still feels like a lot. But if we can press it down a little bit... Actually, come to think of it, wouldn't that be a better idea to just, like, do the whole thing at once and then tear it apart a little bit? Hang on. Not this one. You. Uh-oh. Okay, so in my innocence, I might have forgotten that doing that basically is stabbing into... Oh, no, hang on. This is perfect. Never mind. I'm a genius. Let me keep going, then. Although it does get, like... I do have to rip it out every time I do that, so maybe a little bit gentle with them. Also, this is really hard to like tear apart, which is difficult because I need two of these. Can you give me some back? I'm too efficient for my own good. I've made these too difficult to like chew apart. Alright, got him. This takes surprisingly more strength than it looks like. I don't know why I'm worried about like tearing it apart too hard. I don't know, but if I like... I think it's like the grip of it is also difficult. I really gotta start hitting the gym again. If I get defeated by a freaking by a scrap of fabric, I don't think I'll ever be able to live it down, privately or publicly. Well, maybe that just means I need to overpower the... I mean, conversely, if you think about it, fabric is pretty powerful, isn't it? You know? I mean, I know I'd be at a loss if I couldn't wear anything. Yeah, come to think of it, why am I looking down on fabric? It's a pretty strong substance, huh? I should have no shame for having lost to it. None at all. Also, I'm really gonna need to replace this, like, this foam mat after we're done. Okay, that's... It looks like it has a single gaping eye. Which is not what I want. Probably. I don't know. Cycloptical Rice Beast? No depth perception Rice Beast? Okay. Hmm. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Recently, I got myself a bundle for itch.io that has a tabletop game in there called Greed, which the setup is that for some reason, like, the sun is burning low and the earth has turned into like this Arctic chilly wasteland. And now humanity has to depend on people traveling to other dimensions to find combustible substances and use those to keep the fires inside of like these communities alive. Quite literally. And that's interesting already as kind of like a premise, but what really intrigues me about it is like the way that it phrases everything. A lot of indie TTRPGs have this tendency to give statistics names that are like unnecessarily complicated. You know, instead of just saying intelligence, they have to say like a spurious logic or something like that. I remember reading that one from Paranoia, which I was also interested in Paranoia at one point, but I never ended up playing a game of it. Mainly because I don't think I would be able to like handle being that mean to like a bunch of other players at once. Or rather, that facetious towards a bunch of other players at once. I feel like that's a good way to discover some uncomfortable truths about yourself. In any case, I kind of enjoyed the way that that Greed did this, because a lot of it does feel not just like some slang that is used, but it feels very much relevant to... It feels very mystical the way that they use it. It feels like it feels mystical in like a new age kind of way, or no, I guess new age has its own connotations in kind of like a very contemporary way. I don't know. It gives a very different vibe from a lot of other ones, particularly because of the way that its art is held, or rather that its art style is presented. A lot of it uses like found, what do you call, like World War II propaganda. Because a lot of it does follow the same themes, like don't waste oil. That was a huge thing in World War II. Or I suppose even in the First World War. But yeah, the ideas in the game are super fascinating to me. And it does weirdness in a very good way. You know, a lot of games try to be weird, but they don't really have an aim toward it. This one feels weird in a very cohesive way. I don't know, I just like the vibe of it. Yeah, if you end up getting the chance to check it out, I highly recommend leafing through the rule book. I think that's my favorite part of any TTRPG. I've played exactly one TTRPG session in my entire life, but I really deeply enjoy the world building and like different like character classes. I just like to see what other people have in terms of like the way that they establish characters' agency in the world. Okay. I can give it a similar treatment to how I did the tail. And just kind of thread it through the top and the bottom a little bit. The one thing I will say about needle felting is that no matter how I do it, even with the additional tools here, it does feel a little bit like my hands are going to cramp up at any moment. Particularly with like the gloved fingers. I'm not in pain, so to speak, but I definitely don't think it's... I think this is definitely like a sometimes kind of activity. You get what I mean? For special occasions like this, it's kind of nice. Oh, where did it go? Oh, there it is. I lost track of it for a second. Still kind of big. It's a little bug-eyed. Let's try to see if we can't get it any smaller. Trying to squeeze it tight so more of the fibers clump together. Uh, That's probably a fine size, especially if it's going to be reduced when I actually punch it in. Alright, before we do that though, let me try and get the other one ready. We've done plenty of progress on this one, but the other one's still just a little pile of wool. Or fiber. I hesitate to call this wool. I don't know where this came from. This could be anything. I mean, it's probably plastic. Like, statistically speaking, it's probably plastic, but like, you know, that's not very mysterious. it takes some of the magic out of it. Sometimes you do have to pretend you don't know what it actually is for the bit. Okay, there we go. Usually fiber like that is wool. Could be wool mixed with acrylic. Ah, that's true, isn't it? I mean, after all, only natural fiber has this kind of tendency to clamp together like that, right? It's the only one that has like the hair small enough. Oh, it was a bit. Puts down the large rock. I see. I mean, you do have some what do you call some wool fibercraft hobbies, right, Bunny? In that case, your expertise probably trumps mine by a large margin. So it could be wool mixed with acrylic, huh? I don't know. Wool is pretty much wool is a rather common substance, but I don't know. Whenever I think of like things being cheap, you usually think of them being cut with something else, right? I remember watching this one dude make a machine that could extract fiber from milk, or yeah, basically fiber from milk, called like a lactin or something like that. And it was kind of interesting. He eventually cobbled together a machine to basically gather the lactin for him. But it's a little bit of a dangerous process because it involves using hydrochloric acid at some points. So yeah, maybe not so safe. I mean, it's safe once you wash it, obviously. Although he showed this video because lactin was actually fairly well produced up until recently. You know, once actual plastics started taking over the market. But but he showed these videos of older workers at these black and white videos of workers at the lactin machines threading the fibers, and they were basically straight up dipping their hand into hydrochloric acid, and I'm like, no, oh my god, don't do that. You guys need OSHA just like some people. They needed OSHA like a thirsty man needs water in the desert. No, it was 100% wild. Like, I was just gaping because the machines look very similar, but I'm like, oh, that looks almost exactly like the machine that this guy made. But I hope that's not the same material. But no, it was. They were straight up dunking their hands in acid. Why? Like that kid. How do you not know? How do you not like have that much sympathy? Christ alive. Hopefully if we do end up making more lactin in the future, we'll be able to have some manner of protection against that. It's a little bit bigger than the other one. You know what's funny is that now my posture has been unusually good this stream because now I have to focus on having my hands in the frame of the camera. So because I made sure to put the mat and everything in a comfortable position, now I'm also in like a good like in a good posture. Funny how that can work. The weather these days has been quite nice. You still can't go outside without a coat or just some kind of jacket. But on the other hand, when you're indoors, it just feels like it practically feels like I have air conditioning on. I have no other way to explain it. Like my room feels like it's air conditioned right now. Where's the other? Oh, there it is. All right, let's do this bigger one first. Okay, since this ear is slightly bigger than this ear, let's do the bigger eye on the side with the smaller ear, so that way it looks like evenly lopsided. Okay. I misheard when I'm in Slenderverse. I'm like, oh. God, I hope I'm not in whatever that is. Please don't put me in the creepypasta universe. I'm gonna be such a lame protagonist. It's not even gonna be funny. No, I don't want to go to the creepypasta universe. No. 5 years later, my experiences have made it so that I've turned into a creepypasta myself. Being a creepypasta is fine, actually. I'm okay with this. I don't know. I don't think I'd be. I don't think I would be either a good creepypasta protagonist or a good creepypasta like murderer, right? Because I feel like I feel like it would be like trying to make like a mascot horror game, but with creepypastas, and that shit just do not work sometime. Sorry, you're in the creepypasta mansion sitcom. God, you just like cut to Jeff the Killer in like a very cunty pose, being like, I don't know, I've been trying to get with like with the Godzilla 19 NES game guy, but like he's just so much sometimes, you know? Slips and accidentally stabs you with a felting needle. Don't isekai me so casually. Roll victim. Oh no, for sure I would be like one of the first people to die in a horror movie. I have no question about that. I'm like the comedic side relief that I'm like the comedy relief that gets murdered, so you know shit is going down. All right, I'm gonna need to do this very, very carefully. Have your fingers ready to like update the counter for this next part. I'm gonna like laser fucking focus. Constant hyper alert vigilance. God. You accidentally cause cartoonish deaths by spilling rice on the floor and such. That might be an interesting one. You know, there's a lot of like creepypastas that just like knife murder you or like impale you or do some stupid shit like I don't know, fill you with helium until like you float to heaven or some shit. I don't know. I feel like there's room for a silly shit like mine, which would be like just drowning somebody in rice. You know, like those pranks where like they fill an office or a room full of balloons so that you can't go in without having to get through the balloons. I feel like mine would be like just filling the place with rice until you cannot escape. I'd be like respecting the pouch, but for eating rice. You know those TikToks where like some dumbass person like tries a foreign food and they're like like that. I would show up to those people's houses and wreak my vengeance. Although I guess that makes me more of like a I don't know for creepypastas. I don't remember what like their whole thing was. I don't think they kill. I think there are things you can do to avoid them murdering you, but I think their whole thing is like they don't like really have discriminations regarding who they kill. Like they're not like some kind of fairy tale where if you don't eat your vegetables properly, the rice animal will attack you and your family. Hmm. Okay, we might clutch this. Chat, he might clutch this. Again, constant fucking vigilance. Absolute laser focus, precision work, zero fuck ups, zero room for error. Get it twisted. I am like a sniper scope given hand and motion. I am the square micrometer of a photon hitting our planet with the precision of light that only light can provide. You'd be let him cook. You'd be a yokai if anything. Hmm. I have heard that over in Japan they have Inari, the god of rice. I don't know though. I don't have any relation to that god though. I'm an overseas guy after all. Some other Japanese guy is gonna have to take the mantle of being a talking bag of rice if they want to associate it with that god. Although I guess gods and yokai are pretty different, huh? Yokai are kind of just fairy tales of Japan, although that's a bit reductive. I'd definitely be some kind of Here's the tough thing, right? In Spanish, we have the word duende. There's like a thin line from yokai to god. They're both part of the supernatural, but god has like certain connotations, I think. In any case, Spanish has this word duende, which can mean goblin, gnome, or like any kind of like fey creature, essentially. I think like that's the best way to describe me. If we're going like pure what do you call fairy tale term, I'd be a duende. Huh. You know, I think we've done pretty good. Not bad at all. Hang on. Let me do a little bit more of the years up here. Okay, over here too. Yeah, soft little sweetie. I don't know if he can stand on his own. That he could kind of stand on his own. Hang on. Maybe I need to. Let me get the gloves back on. The finger stockings back on. Let me get these back on, and we can like puncture the bottom side of it a little bit so that it can sit pretty easily. Okay, there we go. Need a lot of strength. Like, I'm putting a lot of strength into this. There we go. Check that out. Oh, I think I might have dented him a little. Hang on. There we go. Now he should be back to normal. He looks a little squirrel-like, though. But like I said, good enough for a first try. I don't know if I'm ever seriously going to be into needle felting quite like I am into visual arts or anything, but I think, you know, this sort of thing every once in a while shouldn't be too bad. You know, this is like a sometimes kind of treat for me. A little variety in my enrichment. All right. With that said, we've kind of accomplished our goal for today. Let me see if there's anybody we can raid. I think that's going to be the end of stream for today. Oh, Corgi is trying to finish up Fate Samurai Remnant, so let's go say hi to Corgi. All right. Thank you all for coming by once again. I really appreciate it. I will be back tomorrow with a little bit more comic work, so please enjoy your stay then as well, and I will see you all later. Bye.